so let's go. So states of consciousness. This is a really interesting chapter. If you ever have an opportunity, in your life to take a consciousness in psychology, this is a really super interesting course. It's 3 months of what we're going to do in one day because it is general psychology, so there's not as much, we don't go into as much detail, but this is really life applicable as well. So let's check it out. States of consciousness. So first of all, what is consciousness? Well, consciousness is awareness of internal and external stimuli. So basically, if we start thinking about, well, what is consciousness exactly? Can I get to I can't reach my things here. Hold on just a second. See if there we go. Get my pen out here. So it's our awareness of internal and external stimuli. So what's going on inside as well as around us. So we have a conscious awareness of a lot that's going on with ourselves. Like if we get an itch on our body, we're consciously aware, and then that would be internal, and then external stimuli. Of course, an itch could be external because it could be a bug, but things going on around us, stimuli. So basically consciousness is awareness. We know what's going on. We're conscious of what's going on. We experience different states of consciousness through drugs, hypnosis, meditation, sleep, and wakefulness. These are just different states of consciousness, basically. Wakefulness is characterized by high levels of sensory awareness, thought, and behavior, okay? Whereas sleep is relatively low levels of activity and sensory awareness. But here's the key. We are still conscious when we're sleeping. We are still in the state of consciousness. When we're under drugs or under hypnosis or in meditation, it is still a state of consciousness because we are still aware of something. We are still aware. So it's totally different than someone who is unconscious or non-conscious of something. So first thing to talk about when we talk about consciousness is our circadian rhythms. Now your circadian rhythm is an internal rhythm of the biological activity of your body, fluctuations in body temperature, your sleep patterns. The hypothalamus is in charge of homeostasis in the body. Like we learned in the previous chapter, in the biology chapter, the hypothalamus is controlling all the hormones, telling the pituitary gland what to do, when to do it, and then it breaks it down. Basically, our bodies work on a circadian rhythm of sun up to sundown. When the sun's up, we feel awake. When it's down, we feel sleepy. The suprachiasmatic nucleus, the SCN, in the hypothalamus helps us to keep kind of the body clock synced. So we run on kind of a 24-hour schedule simply because that's kind of how we structured it. But really, if we were on a true schedule, like if we were locked down in a cave somewhere, and we couldn't have access to sunlight, we would probably be more on a 28-hour schedule. This is why it's very hard for people that work like a third shift, because third shift is really taxing on the body because you see that sun up and your body's like, oh, it's time to be awake. So that's why it's really important to get blackout shades to just like kind of cover up all of the sunlight or light coming in, and even with screens, like trying to keep from watching screens as well. So when we start talking about sleep is one of the absolute most important things that we can get as a human being. It is extremely important that we get enough sleep, but we don't. The truth is we should be getting between they say between 6 and 10 hours. So the average is going to be about 8, but most people are getting between 4 and 6. Partly because of media, partly because of staying up or broken sleep. It has not been proven why we sleep, because remember, nothing can be proven in psychology, but we know that it's necessary to maintain our well-being. We've even seen sleep as being super important because when you go to sleep, the body releases into the brain cervical fluid that kind of flushes alkalites and various other things that are in your brain, kind of flushes that out. So it's almost kind of like a cleaning mechanism during sleep. So sleep is very vital for keeping the brain healthy. Insufficient sleep, you get a sleep debt. This is chronically not getting enough sleep. You kind of owe a sleep debt. It's You have a decrease in alertness, mental efficiency, prospective memory loss. Now, prospective memory, we'll talk about this more when we get to memory, but just for this chapter, prospective memory is the remembering to do something, okay? Prospective is remembering to do something. We may also contribute to symptoms like depression, and we know that insufficient sleep over a culmination of years contributes to dementia and possibly earlier onset Alzheimer's. So sleep rebound is taking shorter time to fall asleep during subsequent opportunities to sleep. So that means that, like, if you stayed awake for a long period of time, especially a 24-hour, for example, that when you do go to finally go to sleep, you'll fall asleep faster because your body's like, all right, get me down, get me to sleep. Sleep disruptions. Sleep regulation is a sleep-wake switch, coordination with the outside world. So usually, sun's up, we're awake, sun's down, we feel sleepy. Jet lag is one of the sleep disruptions you can have because of a mismatch between circadian rhythms. So let's say you take a plane flight over to Japan, which I think in Japan right now it is actually 9 p.m. I believe actually in Japan. Oh no, 11, 12, 1 a.m. maybe in Japan. But it's basically roughly around 10 hours from us. So you fly over there and you go from here, it's day, you take the 7.5 hour flight, you get there, and then, and maybe layovers, whatever. So it takes you 12 hours to get there. So when you finally get there, it's night here, but it's day there. And so your body is kind of not accustomed to that yet. So one of the things they recommend for jet lag is the first day you get to where you're going, you get a lot of sunshine. And then when night comes, you go to bed and you try to put yourself into that schedule. And it could take 2 to 3 days to kind of get over that jet lag. So if you're going on a 3-day trip, that's, you're not even going to have the jet lag gone before you come back. So rotating shift work, rotating schedules can be hard on people because they can't acclimate to any one shift. So a lot of the times, companies now will do 1 month schedules with people where they'll do 1 month on first and then a solid month on third. So that way they're having a full cycle versus every other week, because this can be very unhealthy for the body. Bright light therapy can also be used if people are having problems with sleep. And I know that doesn't make sense because it's like, well, why are you getting bright light therapy if you're having trouble with sleeping? Well, the thing is, if you're living in a place that doesn't have much sunlight and your body is constantly thinking it's in that kind of sleep drowsy mode, if you get that bright light therapy, it kind of creates a distinction between wake and night. And plus you're getting cues to your brain. Oh, somebody's coming in. I think that's what that means. All right. Plus you're getting cues to your brain of things that, I honestly don't see anybody coming. Oh yeah. Okay. I'm going to let this person in, figure out how to do it from here. There we go. All right. So anyways, but bright light therapy can be very helpful because it can help you to kind of make that distinction between awakeness and sleep. And so it can also get you the B vitamins, and it can get your body kind of shocked back into creating that melatonin that you so need to go to sleep. All right, sleep in the brain. Some areas of the brain are involved in sleep, including the thalamus, hypothalamus, and the pons. EEGs are used to observe sleep, and that shows us our waves, which we're going to go over all of the ways, specifically all of the waves and how the waves work, what they look like in the brain. Your pineal and pituitary glands secrete hormones during sleep. One of these hormones is melatonin. Melatonin is a hormone that's released by the pineal gland, and it's incredibly important for sleep and wake cycles. A lot of people will tell me, oh, I take melatonin, it helps me sleep, but it's not helping me anymore. The dilemma with jumping straight into taking melatonin is that when you jump into taking melatonin, your body stops producing natural melatonin. So if you're taking melatonin, your body stops producing natural melatonin. The dilemma is that now you're dependent upon the synthetic melatonins. So when you stop taking it, your body's not producing as much. So it's really better to, like, for your first steps, and individuals can't sleep. And if you go to a sleep center, it's one of the first things they'll tell you is the first thing is to get rid of that screen 30 minutes before bed. My daughter tells me all the time, I can't sleep. I just can't fall asleep. I don't know why I can't fall asleep. And I have walked in before with her laying there, like red-eyed, like staring at her TV phone. And then she's like, I'm watching TV because I can't fall asleep. And it's like, well, but you can't fall asleep because you're watching TV. But I also have friends that say, can't sleep unless the TV is on. So I let them have it. But this is one of the first things they'll tell you. Get rid of all screens 30 minutes before you're about to go to bed. The second thing they'll tell you is progressive muscle relaxation, PMR. But if you Google progressive muscle, it's probably spelled wrong, relaxation. Now remember, I'm writing with the mouse, so please don't judge me. Relaxation, progressive muscle relaxation. You can find a lot on the web about it and how to do it, and that can help trigger melatonin, natural melatonin release too, and can help you sleep. Theories of sleep. Well, first, we always think they're adaptive, obviously. Evolutionary psychology says that, excuse me, it's a discipline that studies how universal patterns of behavior and cognitive processes have evolved over time as a result of natural selection. So evolutionary psychology says that, sleep is necessary. Evolutionary psychology says that, maybe it's because of predators. And so our body had a sleep mode when it was dark because we couldn't see. So it's kind of why we have that sleep mode. And some evolutionary psychologists argue that as time moves forward, we won't need as much sleep. But other people have also argued that that is completely the opposite, that we actually need sleep because it restores resources during the day. It's the body's restitution hypothesis. Like, we need that sleep. We need to have that rest to kind of recharge our body. Sleep patterns have evolved as an adaptive response to predator risk, like we talked about. So there's not as much risk of being eaten by something at night. So do we really need that sleep? But yes, we found that we absolutely do. In fact, there's an incredible video. Let me see if I can find that for you real quick, because it's just awesome. And I can put the link in the chat for you, and then you guys can look at it later. See if I can find it really quick. Ooh. All right. Swa. All right, so it's scientists discover how we remove toxins from the brain. And if I was in class right now, I would normally show the video, but I'm just going to pin it in chat so that way you can have it. And I'll also pin it up in the classroom, in the class today. Anything that I put in chat, I'll put in the class today too when I post this. But it's a really great studies that have been done on sleep and the need for sleep for kind of clearing out our brains. So, all right, so the cognitive function of sleep. Sleep is important for cognitive functioning. We've seen with sleep studies, which, by the way, with regards to sleep studies, we cannot ethically keep someone awake for more than 22 hours. It's actually considered unethical because we believe that sleep is so important that more than 24 hours awake of sleep, you can have irreparable damage to the brain. So it is not at all recommended that people stay awake. You know, really the set time is 16 to 19 16 to 18 hours is a day. But anything over 16 hours, you start to see impairment that is almost the same as slight intoxication. So sleep is extremely important. All right, so sleep deprivation leads to disruption in cognition and memory deficits, especially, like we said before, prospective memory. The remembering to do things. Cognitive benefits of sleep increase capacities for creative thinking, language learning, and inferential judgments. And I can tell when my youngest daughter gets enough sleep, she does so much better the next day than if she has very broken sleep she has some sleep apnea. But if her sleep is very broken, she doesn't do as well the next day. All right, so let's look at the stages of sleep. There's different stages and parts of the brain of the sleep. And I like to kind of look at it like this. Oops, I don't have it here. But I like to look at it kind of like this. At the beginning of the night, or right now, hopefully, you are in a beta stage. Okay, B-E-T-A. Okay? Beta is fully awake, and you are ready to go. Like you're ready to go. As you start to get drowsy, you get into an alpha state. All right, and in that alpha state, you start to go to sleep, and as you go to sleep, you go into theta. Okay, and then as you go down from theta, you go into delta. Then you come back up through theta, and then you go into REM. Okay, and then you go back down through theta, back down through delta, back up to REM. Now this is the alpha state right here. Okay, and then you do it again, back down through theta, into delta, back up to REM. And as the night progresses on, REM gets longer and delta gets shorter. So this is theta, delta, theta again, back to REM. Okay, so as the night gets longer, as the night goes on, you have about 5 cycles. And REM gets longer, which is your rapid eye movement, it's your dreaming stage. Gets longer as the night goes on, and delta gets shorter. This is why it's easier. This is why it is easier to wake up somebody who's been sleeping for 4 hours or 6 hours than it is waking up somebody who's just fallen asleep and is in 45 minutes, because they're probably in delta. And delta is a deeper sleep, and it's harder to wake someone up from delta. And if you also notice, as the night goes on, REM starts to kind of get a little bit higher until finally REM is almost in like an alpha state, and then you wake up. Most people wake up in REM, and REM is the dreaming state. And we'll talk about dreams in just a minute. But remember, if you have any questions, don't forget you can tap it into the chat. So, or you can unmute your mic. I'm totally fine with that too. All right. So, also with this, when you go down into theta, this is where you have sleep spindles. This is kind of it's a non-REM stage. Stage 1, 2, and 3, delta, are non-REM stages. Okay, you're not dreaming, but you do have sleep spindles. So you may have like random thoughts or bursts of light or colors that you see. And also you go into a sleep paralysis during theta, or excuse me, down through theta through delta. And I'm not even going to try to spell paralysis. So sleep par, you go into sleep paralysis as you're coming up from delta into REM again. And that's so that your body doesn't act out the dreams. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too. But if you notice these waves, this is kind of awake thinking. This is your drowsy alpha. Your theta looks a little bit like alpha, a little bit more drowsy with some spikes. And then your delta, your non-REM, it's kind of really wide. And then lastly, we have REM, which looks a lot like alpha, if you notice. Little less of spiking because you're not necessarily having that immediate thought to do something, or it's conscious, but it's not planned thought, you could say. All right. And so here's the stages of sleep. Now I just went over all of that. But 1, alpha waves, low frequency, high amplitude, relaxed. 2, lower frequency, higher amplitude waves, occurring sleep spindles we talked about. And then stage 3 and 4, delta waves, lower frequency, high amplitude waves. During delta, your heart rate, respiration decrease. It's also why you get cold, because your body temperature decreases during this stage. And then REM sleep. This is where you have your sleep paralysis. And then you also can have something called REM rebound. REM rebound is when you have not gotten proper sleep and you start to go to sleep and you go immediately into a dream, and the REM states last longer. Sleep deprivation versus REM deprivation. When someone is sleep deprived, they're not getting quite enough sleep. But if somebody is deprived of REM sleep, they will be incredibly fatigued. This is one of the reasons why, for example, with PTSD, people that have nightmares, and they wake up frequently at the beginning of the nightmare, as soon as they go into a dream state, this is interfering terribly with REM sleep. And that's one of the things students will often ask me, why do they prescribe certain medications, or why are certain medications make you actually feel worse when you wake up? Some medications, they may knock you out, but the problem is that you're not dreaming. You're not having that REM state. And so even though it looks like you're getting sleep, you're not. You're being REM deprived. So it's important to have that REM cycle of sleep. So that's one of the reasons why there's some medications that are dream inhibitors. They inhibit the dreams, remembering of the dreams, but they don't inhibit the REM stage happening. So we can see on brain waves that the REM state's still happening. It's just the person is not conscious. They're not remembering the dreams. So, all right. So let's talk about dreams real quickly. So dreams can be pretty wild, right? Absolutely. Some of the things, there's different theorists that have theories about the dreams and why they are the way they are. One of the theorists is Sigmund Freud. Now, Sigmund Freud has his own dream book. It's incredibly boring. It's hard. It's a hard read because you're just like, but there are some bits of it that are interesting that make you laugh. Because while he was a great mind and whatnot, he also was quite the snake oil salesman with some of his things. Now, he believed in a lot of it, and some people think he didn't. There's a new show that's out about Freud, and I can't really say. I watched 2 episodes and decided that I couldn't handle it anymore. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but it's interesting. It's covering his life kind of thing. But Sigmund Freud believed that they were representations of our unconscious thought. Now remember, Sigmund also believed that the only thing we're ever thinking about is basically sex and our childhoods, unconsciously thinking about sex and our childhood mishaps. So our mother's issue, our mother's problems, all right, how our mother treated us. So there's a bit of a problem with the whole dream theory because it is based around basically sex and childhood manifestations of childhood traumas. So he believed there was manifest content and latent content. The manifest content was the actual content or storyline of the dream. Okay. So this was the actual content of the dream. What is really there? So for example, the actual content of the dream may be, I don't know how to draw this. I usually have access to an eraser, but maybe a lighthouse. Okay. So here's a lighthouse. All right. It's shining brightly for all the ships so that they don't, get hit by. There we go. There's our lighthouse. There's a little door. I don't know if it has windows, but there's our awful looking lighthouse. Then you have the latent. This is a hidden meaning behind the dream. So Freud would say, sorry, I had to sneeze. So Freud would say that this lighthouse was basically a penis, all right? Because it looks like one. It's phallic. So if I had a dream about a lighthouse, Freud would say that I have penis envy and I am jealous of my male counterparts and I'm sexually repressed. But no, it could just be that, I was looking at pictures of lighthouses a few days ago. So it can get really kind of wacky, Freud's interpretations, but they are very interesting. So you should check it out because it's a fun thing. It's a fun thing to read about. All right. Jung and dreams. Jung believed that it was a collective unconscious. This is information shared by everyone. So if you have a dream, for example, that you are, like I had a really cool dream that I was, in, dressed in royal garb and I was walking down a savannah and I had all these people with me and I said, release the army, and the army ran forward and there was this big battle and it was awesome dream. It's cool. I woke up and I was like, oh, that was a great dream. Jung would say that I had picked up the collective unconscious of other individuals or past histories or things like that. I picked up kind of their conscious waves and I had a dream that was a reflection of their life. Really, I had just watched Black Panther, great movie, and so I had a dream about Black Panther, the movie, which I really liked. So that would be why I had that dream. But Jung would say, however, it's a collective unconscious. So if I dream about, being on a river or near a lake, I'm not anywhere near a river or a lake, or I'm not physically near one. But maybe I'm having a collective unconscious dream of others who are experiencing that. So interesting theory, but again, there's no research or evidence. All of Freud's and Jung's dreams just totally lack evidence of them having any type of validity. All right, so when I'm in class, I usually have a lot of questions about dreams. So I tried to incorporate some of the things that students usually ask about dreams into the lecture. But if you have a question or something and it pops up later or you don't want to ask here, you can either ask me privately or you can send me a message too. So, all right, but I do not interpret dreams for people. So don't send me your dream interpretations. Although in class we usually share some, but it's kind of harder in this format. But all right. So sleep disorders. First one is insomnia. Everyone's heard about it. It's difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. Now, this is a big one here. You can be diagnosed with insomnia even if you're falling asleep just fine, but you're not able to stay asleep. Like you may fall asleep and you sleep for 15 to 20 minutes, maybe an hour, but then you wake up and then you have to fall back to sleep again. So constantly waking up during the night. You have to have a minimum of 3 nights and it has to last for at least a month. Experience levels of higher anxieties about the inability to sleep. So I had never had insomnia. Like I had like issues with sleeping and stuff, but never true insomnia. And my friend had it all the time. And so I would keep telling her, well, why don't you just like relax? Or why don't you just try to like sleep, like just close your eyes? And she was like, you don't get it. And so I finally had a bout myself with insomnia. And I was like, wow, this really does stink a lot. Like I legit can't sleep. But another key to this is also if you are unable to sleep, instead of turning to the phone or turning to an activity that you quote enjoy, turn to an activity such as reading a book or which could be an enjoying activity, but it's also relaxing. But reading a book or cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the dishes, doing a task for the day that you hadn't completed, because that can help your brain to kind of go, okay, closing it up, I've completed something. So there's a lot of things that you can do, cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. And we find with cognitive behavioral therapy, no medication, about 89% of cases of insomnia can be resolved. So, you're left with about 10% of cases of not true insomnia, but cases of chemical insomnia, where the person is actually having a severe chemical imbalance. It's making them not sleep. but in like 89, well, 11% technically, but in like 89, 90% of the cases, cognitive behavioral therapy and training the brain can actually teach the person to sleep. And that's why they have a sleep center in Greenville that'll charge you $5,000, but they'll help you sleep. But they use CBT therapy to do that. All right. So sleep apnea, this is where the sleeper stops breathing. I got my mind blown away, okay, when I read about the sleep apnea. I had a student ask a question, and a friend of mine had asked me to research it as well for him. Wow, your blood oxygen, people with sleep apnea, their blood oxygen can drop as low as 30% before their body wakes them up. That is dangerous, all right? Like, I was like, what? Like, I thought sleep apnea was just like, a little bit of obstruction, the person. No, these individuals actually, for some of them, it's quite dangerous. For my friend Brandon, he didn't even make it through his first test. He went to go take a test. And when he got out of the test, or not out of the test, but when he went to sleep at 1 a.m., they woke him up and they fitted him with a CPAP machine, continuous positive airway pressure machine, because they said ethically they couldn't continue to let him to sleep because his blood oxygen level was dropping so low at night that it could potentially be fatal. So this can be a real serious thing. So definitely, if people are having sleep apnea issues, that's got to get checked for sure. All right, so parasomnias. Parasomnias are happen during the delta phase, such as sleepwalking, somnambulism, or parasomnia. Excuse me. It's things that happen while you're sleeping. So while sleeping. Okay. All right, so it can happen during the delta stage. It can happen during the REM stage. Sleepwalking actually happens during the delta phase. Okay, this is somnambulism. It's engaging in complex behaviors while asleep. Here's the thing about sleepwalking. An individual does not characteristically engage in things they wouldn't normally engage in while sleepwalking. Somebody once told me that their friend was sleepwalking, believed they could fly, and they jumped out a window. Now, here's the thing. That would not be sleepwalking. That would be REM sleep behavior disorder, movement during REM sleep, because there's no paralysis has occurred, so the person is acting out whatever it is they're dreaming. Totally different than sleepwalking. Also, waking up a sleepwalker, it's not dangerous. They may be like, whoa, where am I? Why am I outside in the middle of the yard in my underwear? Because you were sleeping, buddy. Let's go back inside. It's not a big deal, like, to wake up a sleepwalker. They're not going to get violent or dangerous. Now, if somebody suffers from PTSD or other, maybe have other underlying issues, you might want to just coax them back towards the house. But sleepwalking really isn't dangerous. There have been some cases in courts that have been tried for sleep murder. Individuals who stated that they had committed a crime or a murder while they were sleeping and had no control over that. Now, one of the cases actually did they were found not guilty because of this disorder. So they were not in control of what they were able to do. They still had a penalty, so there still was sentencing, but they were not sentenced with murder charges. But the majority of the cases, they do not win because you have to have a long history of this being a problem, and it's not that common in individuals over 1920, although it can see more of it when there's a lot of anxiety. So sleep murder, not really a thing with regards to something that is going to get somebody out of because they committed a crime. People don't do things normally they wouldn't or don't have a desire to do when they're awake. All right. So some treatments for REM disorder. Now remember, REM disorder happens during sleep. Clozapam alone or also melatonin may help. And again, the dilemma with the medications is is that your body can stop producing them themselves. But if you have an actual disorder such as RBD, you probably aren't producing enough anyways. So medication would probably be useful in a situation like that. So restless leg syndrome, uncomfortable sensation in legs, feeling like you need to move them, difficulty falling or staying asleep. Often restless leg syndrome is found to be something else other than just RLS. Sometimes it's got to do with bad circulation. So that a lot of times doctors will look into that first. And if they don't find any reason like bad circulation or blood flow or anything like that, then they will go with a strict diagnosis of RLS. But a lot of times there's underlying factors for people to have restless leg syndrome. But the thing is, you feel like you have to move your legs. So it's very hard to fall asleep when your body's like, no, move your leg, move your leg. It's like the motor neurons are firing for you to take action, but there's no stimuli for you to take action. So your body's very confused. All right, night terrors, different than nightmares. Okay, nightmares happen during REM. So REM is when you have your nightmares. Okay, again, I'm writing with a mouse and I can't spell. Nightmares. That's not how you spell nightmares. All right, just bear with me because, you know. All right, so REM. The REM is where you have your nightmares, whereas night terrors happen, they're panic during sleep, okay? You're not awake. You don't wake up at all. When you wake up from a nightmare, you're awake. Like if you wake up and scream like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. There was a giant purple vacuum and it was trying to suck me up. All right, you're waking up. A night terror, you do not wake. The person has a fight or flight response during sleep. So they're actually asleep and they wake up. They don't wake up. They sit up. They have a fight or flight response. Their heart's going fast. They may be sweating, panicking, screaming even, maybe lashing around, but they're not awake. And then they'll just lay right back down like nothing happened. The treatment is usually unnecessary. It's very rare to see night terrors over 4 years old. Like really between 4 and 8, the night terrors kind of like go away. So it's rare to see night terrors in adults, but you can still see night terrors. My littlest one sat up straight up in her bed, screamed really loud, and then laid back down like nothing happened. Of course, it freaked me out because I thought maybe she was having a seizure, but no, it was just it was a little night terror. So, you know, we all run to the bed. We're like, oh, and it's like, okay, it's nothing. So, but it freaked everybody out. But I was explaining, no, it's just a night terror. It's really common. So in younger kids. So, all right. So safe to sleep. So the Safe to Sleep campaign educates the public about how to minimize risk factors with SIDS. This campaign is sponsored in part by the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development. SIDS is sudden infant death syndrome. Since we put the sleeping on the back and information, SIDS has gone down like 80-something%. So infants younger than 12 months are at greater risk. And boys are at greater risk than girls, probably because of other underlying genetic factors potentially. Risk factors include premature birth, smoking in the home, and hypothermia, getting too cold. Infants should sleep on their backs. And they should be free of any kind of, I don't know why this word is here. Infants should sleep on their back, should be free of any suffocation threats. So it's like not having, you know, the bunny. Don't snuggle them up with their bunny. No caps on their heads, and people should abstain from smoking in the home at all because their little lungs just can't take it. The air gets too heavy. But sleeping on the back, like I said, has reduced SIDS tremendously. All right, narcolepsy. Narcolepsy is when a person with narcolepsy cannot resist falling asleep. The reason why I have a picture of a candle here, this is how my friend described it to me. She said her narcolepsy is like lighting a birthday candle. It just burns super fast, and then by the time it's down, she has got to lay down. Cataplexy is lack of muscle tone or muscle weakness. Some cases involve complete paralysis of voluntary muscles. So she will literally has to lay down or sit down. So she'll be walking through Walmart to get groceries and something, and she'll just kind of start to fall asleep, and she literally has to sit down and like she will go to sleep for about 15 minutes. But it can last half hour to an hour, 15 minutes to an hour. Typically, the individuals that wake up from the episode, they feel very refreshed. Narcolepsy is very dangerous because it does interfere with daily life, daily living. My friend can't drive. She wears a bracelet that says she has narcolepsy. So that way, if she falls asleep, lays down, falls asleep, people always call an ambulance wherever she is. But they can, if she doesn't wake up before the ambulance gets there, they can see that she's got narcolepsy. So some treatments such as psychomotor stimulants such as amphetamines can be used to help with narcolepsy. So, all right, so let's talk about substance use and abuse. So substance use disorders. If a person has a substance use disorder when they use more of a substance than they originally intended and continues to use a substance despite adverse consequences. Now, the despite adverse consequences is a big key here. Because you'll have people that will say, marijuana is not addictive. I got that. Marijuana doesn't have side effects. It really doesn't. But if a person is, choosing to use their grocery money to buy marijuana and they don't have milk for their kids, well, this is an adverse consequence. Okay. So this is where we get into, it's not just the body. Okay. Then you have physical dependency, which is your changes in normal body function. Psychological dependency, which is emotional need for the drug. And then tolerance, which is physiological dependence. Person requires more of the substance to achieve its previous effect. So you have to take more. And withdrawal symptoms are negative symptoms when drug is discontinued. So let's talk. We're only going to talk about 3 types, really, drugs here. We're going to talk about depressants, stimulants, and psychedelics. So alcohol is a depressant. I know people get all jazzed up. They have, a glass of wine or a couple scotches and they're like, woohoo, I'm ready to go. I'm feeling good. I've had 3 beers and now I'm feeling great. That's not really what's going on after the next one. Okay. It's actually depressing the central nervous system and it does not help you. Sleep. Some people are like, alcohol helps me sleep. It really doesn't. It's not actually good to help you sleep. Maybe 1 glass of wine will help relax you, help you sleep, 1 beer, whatever, 1 scotch. But anything over that, your body is actually confused about that sleep. So it's not good sleep. At low doses, alcohol is associated with euphoria. I just talked about that. In pregnant women, alcohol use can lead to FAS, fetal alcohol syndrome, or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. Abuse potential of depressants is relatively high. It's very alcohol's commonly abused drug. Partly because it's accessible. But also it's because a lot of people use alcohol for self-medication. Feeling really anxious, have a couple scotches. It's going to make it better. The dilemma is when you're having 3 and 4 scotches every night to try to make it all better. That's when it becomes, habitual, and it can be, especially if you're waking up in the morning and having that scotch to get away from withdrawal symptoms, when it becomes really bad. So keep it in check. So it says know when to stop. Next is stimulants. Stimulants increase overall neural activity, okay? With the depressants, slow down the nervous system, down. Whereas stimulants increase the nervous system. Cocaine agonizes dopamine receptors in the system. This is why cocaine gives that burst of feeling so good, because it's an agonist. We talked about agonists and antagonists in the last chapter. Amphetamines block the reuptake of dopamine. So it doesn't allow it to release. Methamphetamine use has increased over the past 15 years exponentially. I think the last I read, it's increased by like 180%, which, how do you increase by 180%? But I don't know. But exponentially increased. Caffeine is considered a stimulant. However, it's relatively safe depending on how much you drink. I, for example, this morning just drank a delicious, bold coffee drink with B vitamins and ginseng and guarana. So, and they don't tell me how many caffeine milligrams are in here, which is what I was trying to figure out. So I Googled it, and it's only got the caffeine of 1 cup of coffee. And I was like, what? I was really kind of hoping. But it doesn't have that much in it. So I was like, dang it. Well, that's just kind of a waste of money and drink. But it has the other stuff in it, so I guess it's supposed to give you a little bit of energy, but it's tasty. So I had myself a weird coffee this morning. Nicotine is highly addictive and increases heart risk, stroke, and a variety of cancers. All right, opioids. Opioids are analgesic properties. They decrease pain. Okay, they take away pain. Opiates, natural opiates, are derived from opium, which naturally occurs in poppy plants. You won't test positive from eating a poppy seed muffin. You would have to eat like a bag and bags of poppy seeds, and only if you can get poppy seeds that haven't been genetically modified so that they make you sick, like vomit sick, like the kids that bought the poppy seeds from for poppy plants from Lowe's. It's like, okay, they're coated with material that literally makes you vomit. So it's bad. Don't do it. All right. So misuse and abuse of hydrocodone and oxycodone are significant public health concerns right now. Obviously, we are facing a more significant public health concern right now with some other things that are going on. But the opioid use kind of got skyrocketed because people really didn't see the addictive potential as much using opioids as also using them for mental health. But heroin increases the risk for tuberculosis and HIV, partly because of how heroin is used or is ingested. I guess you don't ingest it. What is it? It's what is that called? My nursing people would know. But so it's IVs or needles are used. Opioid withdrawal is extremely unpleasant. It resembles a severe case of flu, but it is not life-threatening. Okay? It's not life-threatening. It's not going to kill you. Whereas, honestly, withdrawals from alcohol can be extremely dangerous. This is why a lot of the times, alcohol withdrawal, people will check themselves into clinics to be able to come clean off of alcohol. But opioid withdrawal is very unpleasant, but it's not life-threatening. So, lastly, hallucinogens. Hallucinogens cause C-A-U-S-E, cause profound alterations in sensory and perceptual experiences. So a hallucination, when you are on hallucinations, when you are on hallucinogens, when you are on the drug, you are considered psychotic. These are visual hallucinations, altered body sensations, skewed passages of time are very common experiences. Mescaline, LSD, or serotonin agonists. PCP or angel dust, ketamine, special K are agonists as well of the NMDA glutamate receptors. So here's the thing. Hallucinogens are not thought to have much abuse potential, partly because of the we don't really see the heavy use amounts with hallucinogens that you do with other drugs. And then we also we don't see the same type of withdrawals symptoms from hallucinogens. And we just don't see, people don't come in for hallucinogen overdose. We don't see it. And marijuana is currently in the hallucinogen category. And I realize, based on the strain of marijuana that you get with the genetically modified marijuana plants that are out there now, marijuana can really be put in any category. I mean, it just needs to, you could have a class in marijuana. Like, we could have a whole 3 months to learn. There's so much information out there about marijuana. If you want to know more about medical marijuana, you can go to Realm of Caring, which is it's a website that does training videos about it. But I mean, it could have its own category. But right now, currently, it's registered as a hallucinogen. All right. So let's go into looking at altered states of consciousness. First one is hypnosis. This is a state of extreme self-focus and attention. So components of hypnosis, guided focus, comfort, openness to the process. If you are not open to the process of hypnosis, it will not happen. You have got to be able to relax and be and have suggestibility, meaning you can take suggestion, and also imagination. So what's going on when someone is hypnotized? Well, we believe there's a disassociation. Hypnosis is a kind of a disassociated state from consciousness. But we also see that there's a social role. You act like someone who's hypnotized when you believe that you're being hypnotized. Clinicians may use hypnosis for relaxation and suggestion, but hypnosis can be very dangerous. So you have to be careful because you don't want to put someone into a hypnotic state and then have them and then make suggestion and create false memories. And we'll talk about false memories when we get to the memory chapter. But that it can happen very easily. I watch a show, and I've watched it twice now. I've seen the whole series twice. Criminal Minds. They do a really good job when they go in to do, like they have the person kind of sit and they say, well, what are you looking at now? Now, here's one of the things they say, what are you looking at now? It's already implying that they are looking at something. But, that's what's the purpose, to find out what the person was seeing. So they weren't leading them there. But my point is they do a pretty good job on the show of making it a little bit more realistic about how hypnosis should be used. But hypnosis can also be extremely dangerous when used by wrong people because you can definitely easily implant false memories. And again, we're going to talk more about this when we get to memories. Meditation. So we have different types of meditations focusing on a single target. You have transcendental meditation. This is the Om. This is the long meditation, the chants, things of that nature. Then you have mindful meditation. This is being mindful in the moment. Meditation has its roots in religious practices, but many use meditation today to help relax, lower blood pressure, and make cognitive shifts in thinking. Now, this is a huge one, all right? Cognitive shifts in thinking. And there is a website that I am going to post to you, and I'll post it in. It's called 1 Moment Meditation. It has, I am not an expert at it by any means, but I am trying my best to use it as much and as frequently as possible. But I'll put it in the chat for you, because you guys who are here, because that's going to be, you kind of get a little bonus to get it early. But the 1 Moment Meditation, it has been pivotal in helping me with relaxation and all of that. So thank you so much. That is our class for today. Don't know why my bird's not waving anymore. He just decided to stop waving. But that's our class for today. I appreciate you guys being here.